Good morning, everyone. And once again, happy Thanksgiving to each of you. That was a beautiful morning. Alessandra, that music was so amazing. Appreciate it. I don't know, it was last week or the week before. I was trying to figure out what day that was. I had a conversation with someone online. They told me that they saw our a clip of our transgender interview that Vince had with Yanni, a member of our community. And he mentioned, yeah, I saw that clip. I said, oh, what did you think? I could tell quickly that he was not happy with what he had saw. So I was kind of curious. I was like, hey, you didn't like it? You got to... where are you at on that? Like, I was just trying to figure out what the problem was. And I think I said something like, do you have a problem with people who are transgender? And he says, well, it doesn't really matter whether I have a problem with it. He said, the Bible, pretty clear about it. It has a problem. What? Pretty clear, hey? Now, I wanted to say a bunch of different things, and it was online. I had just I don't like having these conversations over text. I'd rather have them in person if I could. But I had a lot of things I wanted to say in that moment. You know, last week we explained some of the problems associated with this belief that the Bible is kind of this owner's manual, this instruction manual for life. You know, within its pages are pretty clear instructions as to how we are to live. What exactly is right? What exactly is wrong? Borrowing from the language of a guy named Pete Enns, he wrote this book, How the Bible Actually Works. He's actually written a number of different books about the Bible that I think are fantastic. This one especially, in his words, he would say, everyone needs to understand the Bible, number one, is ancient. It is not a work of modern art. It is thousands of years old. It's ambiguous, he says. And by that, he means it doesn't provide a level of detail often that is required to really spell out how life is supposed to happen. All the decisions you need to make in today's world, it doesn't do a great job of really lining that up. And then even when it does, sometimes how it says you should do life in particular circumstances, in all honesty, could get you in trouble with the law. Because things were different back then. We talked about that last week. And it's a diverse book. It wasn't written by one person. Some people think God just started writing stuff and he just wrote the whole thing and then sent it by divine fax machine, and we humans got it and we kind of assembled it and said, all right, here it is. It wasn't like that. We've talked about that. We spent the last few weeks talking about the fact that this was written by many different authors, 66 different books. And sometimes what one author said about something looked a little different than what another author said about that kind of thing. Last week we even explained how even one author will say one thing, it seems, he's trying to give some kind of instruction, and then literally in the next verse is saying kind of something else. So there's contradictions within the Bible that you have to wrestle with. Well, I want to revisit some of these characteristics again today. The ancient nature, the ambiguous nature, the diverse nature. In talking about the laws of the Bible. Because even that conversation that I had with that guy last week or the week before, he's pretty specific that there is a law, in his mind, there's a law that speaks to the LGBTQ community. And if you take the Bible seriously, then you should be applying that law. So I want to talk about the laws this morning. What do you do with these laws? Within every faith tradition, it seems, especially within the Christian tradition, they use the Bible kind of as a foundational text. And it gives all these different instructions. And we're taught that following the Bible and the instructions it gives is kind of foundational to being a Christian. If you're not willing to take the Bible seriously and do what it says, then really, are you even serious about your faith at all? This is kind of a joke. I have people say that to me sometimes online. They go, "Do you preach the Bible?" I said, "Well, what part of the Bible are we talking about?" Because there's a lot of parts that I'm pretty sure you're not following either. Really, if truth be told. No one follows. I mean, within it, you'll find over 600 different laws. Well over 600. Books have been written, humorous books have been written about people who tried to live true to the Bible over the course of a year. Pretty hilarious. Pretty difficult. I'll add that. Pretty difficult. Very, very, very few people actually live according to the Bible in every way that it prescribes in today's world. So having said that, then, well, which laws and which rules do apply? What parts do you take seriously and go, okay, well, no, that's for us now, today, and no, that isn't. I mean, you'll find laws that tell you about what to do when you get leprosy. You'll find laws that tell you to avoid pork, to avoid women who are on their periods. We won't go there this morning. Some laws specify which four-legged insects you're allowed to eat. Whether you're allowed to use a chisel to build a stone altar. I want to know something. Who used chisels on your stone altar just recently? Come on, be honest. Like there's some stuff there you're going, come on. You get reading some of the stuff and you can, there's sections of the Bible you go, holy cow, not applicable, not applicable, not applicable. For us today, but boy, back in the day, spiritual ancestors, they took them very seriously. It's important to understand that. I mean, there's passages that point out, if you don't follow this thing carefully, God will send the curse. And there's some verses in the Bible that talk about just what that meant. I mean, you could invoke drought on your community, famine, blindness. You could be excommunicated from those that were part of your world. You could be killed. You could have your kids taken away from you. There's scripture that tells you, you don't follow these laws, this is what's going to happen to you. So these people, man, I tell you, our ancestors, they weren't joking around. They were paying close attention to all the rules. But today, we go, well, no, that doesn't really matter. And we don't even do that anymore. No. Most people, in fact, even within modern Christian traditions, will acknowledge that many of the Old Testament ritual laws and ceremonial laws were very specific to an ancient culture, and they no longer apply. However, the moral and the ethical laws that are written within this, even within the Hebrew Bible, still apply. Like the Ten Commandments still apply. Many people say, well, why don't we just follow the Ten Commandments? Why don't we just keep it simple and just say, let's just do that? Well, even that is easier said than done. Like the fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. We're instructed to cease all work on the Sabbath. Like today, this is Sunday. I hope none of you have any housework planned. I mean, but what exactly constitutes work? If you're really serious about this, is work only what you get paid for? Or is work really talking about some kind of level of physical exertion? The ancient Israelites, they never received paychecks for the work they did. Didn't work like that. So obviously for them, It was an exertion thing. Don't do things that require you to get tired, I'm assuming. So how would that apply to us? What about cutting the grass? Or fixing something around the house, washing the car? Is that work? What if you enjoy cutting the grass? I, for one, enjoy it. I got in my last mowing yesterday, and those lines were lined up, even though this morning all the snow's on the ground, and it was a little too cold to enjoy a beer and just look at my lawn yesterday. I enjoyed it. But is that work? Could I have done that today? What if you do find it therapeutic and it's not something that makes you tired, per se? What if what you do to relax on a Sunday causes someone else to work? Like, let's just say you guys relaxing here today. You're causing me to work. What if you went out to a restaurant today and you're going, hey, no, honey, no one's cooking today, but someone else is having to cook. There's cooks in that restaurant that are cooking. You're making them. You go to that movie theater, someone's pulling your tickets, making your popcorn. What about that? Don't even get me started on the single moms out there that don't have a choice to work on the weekends, to provide and put a roof over their heads of their kids, taking care of their family. Police officers and fire people. Like, what about that? It's complicated. It's not as easy as just saying don't work, right? Let's leave that commandment for a second. What about the fifth one? Honor your mother and father so that they may live long in the land. You may live long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. We're told to honor our father and mother. Can our parents be questioned? Is it honoring to question your parents? And all the parents in here are saying, nope, it's not honoring. Can they be disobeyed ever? What if your parent is abusive? What if your parent is a narcissist? What about the sixth commandment? Thou shalt not kill. Can you kill in self-defense? To protect your family? Someone breaks in, wielding a weapon. Could you turn around and shoot them? Or are you not allowed? Someone brings a semi-automatic rifle into a preschool. Should you be able to kill the assailant? How about the eighth commandment? Thou shalt not steal. What if it meant saving your child who is starving? Like, there's just technicalities around this stuff. It's not just easy to interpret straight up and go, oh yeah, just take this stuff seriously. Well, my point is exactly how we keep these commandments, or knowing whether some laws are applicable or some aren't. It isn't always really easy. It's often a bit ambiguous. This past week, I wanted to take that person who said, well, the Bible clearly says, Jeff. I go, really? Well, let's go to some of those clear passages. Let's just unpack them a little bit, shall we? It seems that these laws were written in such a way to ensure that you just can't tick off the box. Oh, yes, obedient. Yes, I've done. Yes, I've done. Self-righteously. Yeah, I kept that law. I kept that law. I've kept that law. Really? It's almost like parents who tell their teenager to clean their room, or you're not getting any internet for the week. It's almost like they're begging for a fight, because that kid's going to go in there and clean their room according to what they think is clean. And then the parent's going to come in and say, that ain't clean. And they're going, yes, it is clean. Well, what do you mean by clean? It's almost like you set up something like that, it's coming for a fight. And in the same way, it's like the biblical writers, they They fashioned these laws almost like they wanted the fight. They wanted people to not just be able to go check, 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 but they wanted people to think deeply. What does this mean? What was the purpose of this law? Right after the 10 Commandments in Exodus, we come to some chapters of laws referred to as the laws of the covenant. The laws of the covenant, this is just really, it's a fancy term, technical term to talk about the legal relationship between the children of Israel and God, the character God in the story. It's just like, okay, let's just talk about what's allowed and what isn't. They were going to be entering this new promised land, and these laws kind of start laying out kind of what we would have as just laws of the land here in the province. Stuff that we just take for granted, that are kind of woven into our criminal code, into our law code. Just addressing various scenarios. Like here's one. It says if someone hits someone and you kill them, the penalty is death. You kill someone, you die, period. But if there was no intent to kill, if he didn't mean to, if it was an accident, let's call it an act of God. What we'll do is we'll set aside a place where the killer can flee for refuge. They have to leave, but they can go there and they can be safe. But if the murder was premeditated, if it was cunningly plotted, then drag that killer away, even if it's from my altar, and put him to death. Okay, seems fairly simple, but man, that gets tricky. All the lawyers out there are kind of looking at this going, that would be pretty hard to argue. It'd be easy to argue against, did you really mean to? I mean, how many murderers out there going, hey, everyone, I'm going to go and kill John? No way. They come in and go, I don't know what happened. It was an act of God. I got freaked out and I swung the bat and it just happened to hit him in the head 10 times. And I don't know. Well, okay, you might have gotten scared. Yeah, sure, you cracked him once, but man, 10 times. So there's all this stuff. It gets tricky to prove in and out, right? But it's almost like this stuff was designed to say, think deeply about how this all works. And each scenario is needing to kind of get massaged. Wisdom wasn't an afterthought, but rather it was always kind of central. We talked about wisdom last week. It's kind of just like, don't check your brain at the door. Don't look for just this clear instruction manual and these clear laws that just make everything so crystal clear. All you have to do is just follow the letter of the law. Check, check. No, wisdom was always woven into these expectations, saying, no. The law needs to be married with a little wisdom. Think deeply about what it is this law is really trying to protect us from. This is why the ancient Israelites found the law and wisdom inseparable. They need each other in order for it to work. Jesus was always fighting with the religious leaders of his day over rule technicalities. They're always busting them for little things. They're going, hey, we just saw your disciples. They didn't wash their hands before they ate. Why is that? They said to him. Jesus didn't even answer their question. He says, oh, really? Why don't we talk about something you guys have been doing lately? He says, you know what the Bible says about honoring your mother and your father. I've been watching, and I've been noticing something that you've been doing. And you think you're all clean. You're following the letter of the law. They called it this Corbin rule, where people could say money that they have that could be used for helping aging family members, helping them with their needs. They could say, well, I can't use this money for that. I'm sorry. I need to devote it to the temple. It was a little law they could invoke that was saying, I need to separate money from what I have to go to the temple. And it was being used as a loophole for people to be able to get out of taking care of their family members. Jesus says, I see what you're doing here. And you're getting off scot-free, but you and I both know that you are breaking the law. He says, you hypocrites. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. These people were following the letter of the law, but Jesus was continually pointing to the spirit of the law. He's going, let's talk about what that thing was really supposed to do. Man, there's times when I have these online interactions with these people that are saying, oh, I'm so upset with you guys showing some kind of respect to this person that I don't like, that I don't agree with. And I go, you're going to quote scripture to justify your mistreatment of that person? You're going to quote one little verse over here? Why don't we spend the next half hour quoting all these other passages about loving our neighbor and how you can do all of it, but if you have love, you have nothing. Well, which one matters? You're going to quote that as a letter of the law? Let's talk about the spirit of the law for a second. Here's another challenge with the laws, is they don't stand still. I was just doing a little research on just the laws of Canada recently. I don't know if you guys realize this. For like 10,000 years, the indigenous peoples across what we now call Canada, they roamed this land with their own kind of governing laws that were kind of passed on through oral tradition. Laws and customs, just kind of governing the way that they lived on the land. 1608, French colonists, they showed up. They started imposing their French law, especially within Quebec. Then the British moved in. And they said, no, we like our British law. That came in. That was 1763. By 1867, all these different colonies across Canada kind of morphed together, and they said, let's come up with some laws that kind of govern right across the country, can we? That was kind of the British North American Act, but that really was just British law. It was a British Act is really what that was. That was 1867. It wasn't until 1982 when Canada got serious and said, you know what? We need our own law. Up until then, literally, Canada could make their own little internal laws, but if they wanted to change anything that was a part of their constitution, we were asking Britain for their permission. Right up until 1982, the indigenous people literally didn't have any constitutional rights. They would make a treaty with the government. The government literally, it was kind of one of these internal laws. The government could override it and say, well, no. No. Actually, yeah, I know we said that, but it wasn't part of the Constitution. I'm sorry, no. So governments would just pass laws that literally disregarded stuff that they had originally agreed to. Right up until 1982. Then things started changing. But you'll notice, even within Canada, our laws are just constantly being morphed and amended to address new, different, relevant situations within our country. Did you know the Bible, right within the Bible, it's been doing the same thing? I want to show you something today. Because a lot of people, the number of times people have told me, I wish I had a buck actually, for every time someone said, how can you even take seriously a book that endorses slavery? Makes it sound like it is absolutely just fine. Talk about archaic. I just want to talk about that for a second. I just want to show you just a few examples. In the book of Exodus, right toward the very beginning, yes, slavery was commonplace. The children of Israel, who this book was primarily written for, they were slaves in Egypt prior to being emancipated. Pharaoh, remember, Moses goes in and says, Pharaoh, let my people go. They are released from slavery. They move into this new land. But even as they're moving in, they had laws around slavery. And they're pretty barbaric, if truth be told. Exodus 21 says, and if someone strikes the eye of a male or of his male or female slave and destroys it, wrecks their eye, he shall let the slave go free on account of the eye. Now, at that time, the rule was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Someone takes out your eye, you're allowed to take out their eye. But they say, not with slaves. They don't get to take out your eye. You take out their eye accidentally, you do something that hurts them, tell you what, they can't do it back, but you have to release them. Also, every 6 years, slaves were required to go free, but only men. Women, the only way women could be released is if they really pissed off their slave owner, and in which case then their dad would have to buy them back. That was the rule in the earliest part. You look at that, you go, whoa, that is just ridiculous. But later, right within the Bible, now remember, we've told you, there's books of the Bible that were written hundreds of years apart. They weren't like written back to back, back to back, back to back. And they're written in different parts, different. So here, that was Exodus. Look at it in Deuteronomy. It's a little more humane now. All of a sudden it says, no, speaking of your slaves, when you set them free, don't send them off empty-handed. Provide them with some animals, plenty of bread and wine and oil. Load them up with provisions from all the blessings from which God, your God, has blessed you. Now, this is like a softer, almost more humane, saying, look at, as you release your slaves, let them go. And also, at this point, both men and women are allowed to be freed. It wasn't the same laws applying to women. Things are changing right within biblical passage. There's a third voice here. Leviticus says, this is interesting. If one of your fellow Israelites falls into poverty and is forced to sell himself to you, again, a slave, technically, they fall into poverty and they're literally saying, hey, you can buy me. I'll be your slave. You pay for me, pay off my debt. What does it say? Do not treat him as a slave. Treat him instead as a hired worker or as a temporary resident who lives with you. And he will serve you only until the year of Jubilee. When that magic year runs up, they all go free. Completely changing right within the pages of the Bible. What was a law, you can see morphing right in front of you from one book to another to another. It's like human history. It's working just like it did in Canada. All of a sudden, what was barbaric now, people are going, wait a second, that's brutal. No, needs to change. Needs to change. The point is, even within the Bible, what we say as clear and obvious law has been morphing right from the very beginning. So rather than reading some verse that seems to be talking about divorce, or some verse that seems to be talking about LGBTQ, or women in leadership, women wearing head covering in the church. People bring up these laws the Bible speaks of at different times. I often ask them, are you not aware that laws have been changing all along? Where would we be today, 2025, if the Bible was continually being added to it? How many times would those laws have been amended leading up to this point in human history? We need to acknowledge that this understanding around some of the rules and laws that have been morphing, they continue to. It's perhaps the church, when we get locked into thinking this was a document written for all people at all times, at all places, exactly the way it is, that gets us into trouble. Truth is, man, this thing doesn't stand still. Even within its pages, it was changing and changing and changing. So I say all that to ask, what would it be like if as a community we could take the laws that have been written and use some real wisdom around them and going, no, obviously NA, not applicable. Obviously not that, not that. But even these, even a rule like the Sabbath, oh, I can find a million technicalities as to why that is problematic in the way that it's worded. But do I believe that there is wisdom to saying honor the Sabbath? Let me tell you something. I have burned out and crashed at times in my life where I was angry, I was resentful, stressed out. Why? Because I wasn't honoring the Sabbath. Now call it whatever you want. Use whatever criteria you want. But there was something very wise about that commandment that says, Jeff, you better watch your rhythms of life. And you better be setting aside time for you to recreate your mind and your heart. You better be slowing down, my friend, because you are becoming someone I cannot recognize. And your spirituality is taking a nosedive because you are not willing to pay attention to age-old wisdom. See, I can poke holes all I like in many of these laws, but when I apply wisdom to them, I'm going, oh, I need to think deeply about how this applies to me. Thou shalt not kill. There have been times when I've killed my kids with my words. I have used words so sharp, they have gone in and just, and I didn't know it at the time. I only heard them tell the story later. And I marked them, and I had no idea. See, we can kill in so many different ways. Killing is to be forbidden. You see, wisdom just looks at this from so many different lenses and says, what is this saying to me right now in 2025? So when someone wants to say, oh, are you preaching the whole Bible? I go, yeah, I believe we are. But boy, I tell you, the nuance and the need to really think deeply about what this actually means to me in my world right now, oh, that takes wisdom. So, I guess back to this. Lots of laws, but never to be used like some kind of checkbox. Check, 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 check. But to think deeply and to use wisdom to say, what is that really saying? What is the spirit of that law? And am I paying attention to that? That's my hope for you as we, week to week, bring up different things. You won't just shortcut it, because anyone can just say, oh yeah, no, I've heard that before. Oh, I hope someone else is listening to that. Oh, that was a good message for so-and-so. So often there is a kernel. Sometimes it's tied into a law or some kind of guidance, some kind of watch out, be careful, don't. And we can get all defensive and all allergic around any kind of moralistic prescription. And you can say, that is the oldest archaic rule, whatever. You can technically dismiss anything that this says. But if you're wise, you will listen to some of these archaic guidance rules and you'll say, there might be something there that is speaking to me right now. And I pray that you'll have the wisdom and the open-mindedness to be able to say, even when I stand up here right at the beginning of the service and I say, breathe and invite with an open mind what the sacred, what the spirit, what the universe, what God might be talking to you about today. And I pray that your open-mindedness would be able to listen to something perhaps very archaic and go, are you talking to me? And what you come away with will look likely completely different than her, completely different than him, but it is exactly for you. That, my friends, takes wisdom. Wisdom where you dive in and go for the spirit of the law and not the letter of the law. May we be people who are truly seeking for the spirit of the law. Because when you get there, I'm telling you, you do find the keys of life. You do find something in here that is so powerful. That's my prayer for you. Okay, that's it for today. Next week, yeah, all right. Hey, isn't that great? That's good stuff. Next week, Vince is back here, and I can't, you know what? I can barely remember what I'm going to speak on, let alone what he's going to speak on next week. So whatever it is, it's going to be great. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to be really good. You won't want to miss it. Have a great week, everyone. Hey, the sock drive is on. If you brought socks, drop them into the bins out front there. If you want to donate, maybe you didn't bring socks, maybe that's the whole thing. You'd like to donate, you can go online and donate to it, all right? We're going to give some well-deserving people that are in a tough place in life some socks here over the next few weeks. So don't miss out on that, all right? Have a great week.